Hello, y'all. Welcome back to the Real Evvonne. I'm Evvonne, your host. And what I want to do with this video is speak about basically what I'm going to call the Alabama slave trade bet sold down the river. If you understand the history of Montgomery, Alabama to be exact, one of the most prolific slave trading cities in the U.S., which is the United States of America, turned brutally repressive apartheid regime after and is majority black, but just got its first black mayor. If you understand that, it will give you much more perspective to the now viral video of the brawl, the fight that happened this past weekend in 2023 of August. The brawl that broke out in Montgomery, Alabama on August 5th at the Riverfront Park. In case you didn't know, actually happened near a historical site with a racist past. Downtown Montgomery used to be the site of the domestic slavery trade in the state, and enslaved people were transported on the Alabama River and unloaded at the dock on Commerce Street. Where that boat was docked is literally, I'm talking about where that brawl happened at, where that boat was docked is literally where they marched enslaved Africans from the steamboat to the town center to be sold. Have you heard of Africa Town, which is in Alabama? Do you know the history of the last slave ship, Clotilda, that entered the U.S. and ported in Alabama that has recently been discovered? If you haven't, let me go ahead and show you a brief history on this.
Our story begins as we've been led through the forest and tree branches rustling with the sounds of the chains that bind us one to another. Reach the shoreline of the Kingdom of Homie, present-day Republic of Benin. We are loaded onto this huge ship called the Clotilda. The captain is afraid that King Glili is coming to the ship to attack him, so he leaves 15 of our tribespeople behind. They load us into the cargo hold. The door slams shut. There's only darkness. We begin to cross this vast ocean with the fear of not knowing where we are going or what awaits us, and the pain of never seeing our loved ones again. The sounds of the water beating against the ship as the ship struggles through a hurricane. But there's only darkness that we can see in the slave hold. The women and the children crying out as we are packed and shackled together. Death is preferred rather than the unknown that awaits us. This was just before my 20th birthday. This is our story. America takes its first big step in stopping the importation of Africans. In 1794, the United States makes it illegal to maintain or support ships involved in the slave trade within its ports. On January 1st, 1808, the United States bans the importation of Africans. The penalty for importing Africans is still only a misdemeanor. The fines associated with being involved with the slave trade do little to deter slave traders. The fines are paltry when compared to the profits made from the importation of Africans. After seeing little success, the United States government begins imposing stiffer monetary penalties for those involved in the slave trade. Additionally, slavers would now be faced with the seizure of their ships and up to 5 years in prison. Despite the considerable risk, Americans continue to operate in the slave trade. In fact, the increased risk makes the slave trade a more profitable business for those involved. Very few slavers are ever caught, and of those who are caught, few are ever convicted of a crime. Slave ships begin using the ingenious strategy. Slavers simply abandon ship if they are pursued. Entire ships of Africans are thrown overboard to get rid of the evidence of the crime. The government simply cannot keep up with the slavers. In 1859, an infamous bet is made. Timothy Mayer and his brothers Jim, Byron, and John Dabney discussed the difficulty of bringing a ship full of illegal slaves to Mobile port. The government has been making it increasingly more difficult to import Africans through Mobile ports. Some are starting to say it's impossible. Timothy Mayer believes otherwise. He bets the group it can be done. Timothy wagers he could bring 100 Africans through the ports right under the government's nose. He bets a massive sum of $100,000. With the bet on, the men now need a ship and crew. This thing is more than a bet. It is also an investment opportunity. If Timothy is right, anyone involved stands to make a hefty profit, considering slaves are selling at a premium. With the money raised, the investors hired the best sea captain around, Captain William Bill Foster, and his crew to make the journey and pick up the cargo. The investors also purchased a ship, the Clotilda, a two-mast schooner. This ship is built by Captain William Foster himself. This ship is specifically chosen for her fleetness, cargo capacity, and speed. The ship is overhauled and refitted specifically for the purpose of transporting slaves. If any ship can make this treacherous journey successfully, this one can. War is a part of Africa. War among tribes or ethnic groups in Western Africa has become widespread practice. War is encouraged and instigated in Africa to keep the slave market open and viable. When a tribe conquers another, the conquered people are often sold into slavery. This encourages more conflict. War is a business in Africa. An important article is published in the Mobile Press Register on November 8, 1858. The article describes a war on the west coast of Africa. The king of Dahomey, Glili, has been running a brisk trade operation near Sierra Leone. Glili has captured a large number of men, women, and children from surrounding villages and has made them available for export. This is just the opportunity Captain William Foster and his investors have been waiting for. It is time to set sail. Captain Foster arrives on the coast of Dahomey on May 16, 1860. Foster and his men make landfall. They are immediately met by King Glili's soldiers. Captain Foster and his men are brought before Glili. Foster is careful not to offend this temperamental king. King Glili proudly explains how he conquered the surrounding villages. He even used women as warriors, the Amazons, also referred to as non-mitan, meaning our mothers in the Fon language by the male army of Dahomey. They are an all-female military regiment of the Kingdom of Dahomey. They are also the king's bodyguards. Those who are not killed have been enslaved. All of the enslaved are taken to the stockades in Ouida, stripped of all their possessions, and imprisoned. Captain Foster selects 125 young African men, women, and children to make the journey to America. Foster pays Glili $100 for each slave. Foster and his men chain all the captives together and march them to the shore. Before being brought aboard the ship, the African captives are forced to walk around a large tree several times. The purpose for this process was for the captured Africans to forget their history, their religion, their families, their cultures, and their homeland. They are then led through the door of no return, never to see their homeland again. The Africans are then loaded onto rowboats to be boarded onto the ship Clotilda in the cargo hold. The Clotilda is the last ship to leave. As Captain Foster and his men are loading the slaves, a lookout spots something terrifying. King Glily's vessels are approaching, and they are flying black and white flags. Glily is known to engage in piracy. Now it looks as if he's planning to steal back the African captives and keep the money. Foster needs to make a split decision and orders the crew to abandon the slaves who were not yet on board. Cudjo Kazula Lewis feared he would be separated from his brother Charlie Olule Lewis and his friend Asakibe, who were just loaded onto the rowboat. Cudjo Kazula Lewis yells out to the crew. Then the crew turns around and puts Cudjo Kazula Lewis into the rowboat. So only 110 of the 125 Africans are loaded into the cargo hold, leaving 15 on shore. Captain Foster decides to cut his losses. He immediately flees. The terror of not knowing where they are being taken. What is their fate? Forced into the dark cargo hold and forced to lay down, the door slams shut, only to lie in complete darkness. The enslaved cargo are given very little to eat or to drink, only being fed twice a day. The water was bitter because vinegar was added to it to prevent scurvy, a disease caused by vitamin C deficiency. Scurvy affected poorly nourished slaves and the ship's crew. After 13 days at sea, Foster and his men can't take it anymore. The Africans in the cargo hold will not stop crying out. The cargo hold is completely dark, too tight, and the slaves are too cramped to move around or stand. Foster realizes he cannot deliver dead slaves, so he orders his men to let them out in small groups and walk them around the deck. The Africans need to move and bend their legs, otherwise they may suffer permanent damage. While on deck, enslaved cargo sees nothing but the ocean, no land in sight. They are terrified of not knowing where they are going or what will become of them. After 70 days at sea, at nightfall on Sunday, July 8th, 1860, the Clotilda approaches Mobile Bay. Not wanting to get caught by the authorities, Captain Foster directs the ship up the Spanish River. He avoids the main channels and waterways. Captain Foster then directs the ship to a secluded location on the islands of the Mississippi Sound and into Mobile Bay. Once their location is secure, Captain Foster sends word to Timothy Mayer that they have arrived.
Well, things being as they were, there are some good people in this country. And they got the word to the government that this bet was on. So the government people were out there waiting on them along the Mississippi River.
And the authorities are on high alert and begins the search for the Clotilda. Captain Foster hides the cargo in the swamps for several days. Then he and his men quickly transfer their cargo onto a steamboat. Captain Foster then sets the Clotilda on fire to destroy any incriminating evidence. Mission accomplished. The African slaves are now under the control of Timothy Mayer and his investors. The slaves are brought to John Dabney's plantation near Mount Vernon, and after a brief hiding period, the slaves are now distributed among all the investors, and some are sold to other plantation owners, but the majority of the African slaves are sent to Timothy Mayer's plantation. The federal authorities quickly find out about Mayer's bet and the ensuing illegal importation of the enslaved Africans. Mayer and his investors are arrested and charged with the illegal importation of Africans. Unfortunately, federal authorities cannot provide enough evidence to convict Mayer and his co-conspirators. The case is dismissed. After the Civil War and the emancipation, the former slaves are left to survive on their own. The Africans petition the United States government to send them back to their homeland, but their requests are denied. Eventually, the Africans decide to build their own community in the image of their homeland. Since they could not go back to their homeland, they asked Mayer to give them a plot of land, since he was the one who brought them here. Mayer refused. So on September 30th, 1872, they purchased a plot of land around Magazine Point and Plateau. The town came to be known as Africatown. Under the leadership of Gumpa Peter Lee, the Africans formed their own self-governing society. Disputes are resolved by a tribal chieftain. Illnesses are treated by their African doctor. The people speak their native language, have their own customs, and carry out their own tribal traditions. The men work as masons and carpenters, building their own homes. Honey is plentiful in Alabama forests, and the people are able to adapt their hunting and fishing skills accordingly. The people also planted crops. The people of Africatown formed their own self-sufficient world. The men voted for the first time and became naturalized citizens on October 23rd, 1868.
Now, that group of people were not slaves long because the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863 and the Civil War ended in 1865. So when they were set free on that land in which they came ashore, which is now Africatown. The Mayor family told them that they could take the land and live on. Well, they set up a community of their own. Now, they didn't know much about American law, but they knew about the law, the tribal law, where they came from. So the laws that they set up were based upon the laws of a tribe back in Africa, which made them the first community in this country of free slaves, in which the laws resemble the same laws as a tribe back in Africa.
Cudjoe Kazula Lewis is one of the last living survivors of the original Africatown population. He was captured just before his 20th birthday. He becomes a spokesperson for the people of Africatown. He shares his story. He tells of the horrific journey across the ocean, the days on a plantation, and the rise of Africatown. Cudjoe Kazula Lewis would cry profusely every time he would think about or speak about his family and villagers and how they were brutally murdered. He missed his homeland, always hoping that one day they could return. When given interviews, Cudjoe Kazula Lewis would always insist that the writers use the traditional African names of the Africatown people so that families in Africa would know they survived. Cudjoe Kazula Lewis died in 1935 at the age of 95. His resting place is in Africatown's historical cemetery.
Story of Africatown is a very important story because it's a story of our resistance. And it seems like we speak a lot about our time in captivity and in forced labor camp, but we don't speak enough of all the resistance movement. Many gave their lives fighting relentlessly all throughout the time of captivity till the end, till today. Africatown is one of the beacon experience to show that we will not accept those terms. Haiti is another example. Maroons in Jamaica is another example. I was just in Brazil. We have the Minas Gerais. They were hiding in the mountain. They created community where they kept the language, they kept the rights, whatever it was. So this is why Africatown has to be really studied and has to be exposed much more in the teaching to adults or children, but it has to be a story, a narrative that we keep on hearing.
The chaotic scene that was divided between race lines reportedly began after a black co-captain on a Harriet II riverboat asked the owner of a pontoon boat to move because it was parked in a spot of the waiting dinner cruise boat carrying multiple passengers. To be exact, y'all, it was over 200 passengers. This co-captain was attacked by multiple white people after they refused to move their boat. So several black men came to his aid after witnessing the attack. I saw some women too, just to be precise. So for some of the millions of people who watched the series of viral videos posted to social media on Sunday and beyond, one question burns in the mind. Why did those white folks think that they could attack someone, a city worker no less, in broad daylight and get away with it? The answer to that question requires an understanding of the Montgomery history that got us to this point. Nearly 60 years after a white supremacist bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, killing 4 little black girls. Nearly 68 years after Rosa Parks and others led the Montgomery bus boycott to challenge segregation in the South. And 73 years after the last documented lynching in Montgomery, Alabama, some white Alabamian men thought that it would be a good idea to sell into a black city, because I already told y'all it's predominantly black, to sell into a black city and assault a black city worker with impunity. They thought they could do that with no, they literally thought, now I know they saw they were surrounded by black, and they literally thought that they could beat that older black man that was doing his job. They thought they could do that. A lot of people got a problem with the fact that somebody, a black man, picked up a chair. I don't think y'all understand the symbolism of that chair. Because for over 400 years and more, black people, my people, were whipped. Whoops and all. We were also told, because I mentioned Rosa Parks, look it up. We were also told we couldn't sit on a particular part of the bus, right? We couldn't sit on the bus, especially in Alabama. The significance of that, if you don't know your history, please look it up, because I'm gonna tell you something right now. If you're in a public school system, hell, even private, they're not teaching you this. And I'm gonna tell you something. No matter what anybody think about the Bible, I'm gonna tell you about the truth that is within the Bible. There are 2 voices in the Bible. I stand on it. I've always said that, right? This is why God said that we got to seek truth. Part of seeking is you got to be able to decipher fact and fiction message. You got to be able to decipher the voices. One telling you one thing and another telling you another. I'm just saying. So anyway, back to my point. Our people was whooped for so many years, and we did not fight back. I say we because I'm talking about my ancestors. And let's not get nothing twisted. I'm a very light-skinned female. People always asking me, where are my people from? My ancestry. I'll be like, I'm from Washington, D.C. No, where you? I'm black. And they look at me with surprise to this day. I got Hispanics, and I love y'all. They come up to me speaking Spanish. I know I can get by. I know the bare, but I'm not Hispanic. People think that. I'm not. Both my parents are Black. Now, I do have the white people in my family, and none of us in the United States are 100% Black. A lot of you white people be surprised that a lot of y'all not even 100% white. Message. But most of us identify with the predominant race, right? There's absolutely no way. I have my great-great-grandfather was white, and his father was a slave owner, right? So then you got the great-great-great-grandfather, right? They white. Matter of fact, the great-great-grandfather, I got this man's picture in my living room. It's a white man. So anytime anybody see about who's that white man, right? That's what people say. Who is that white man? But I wouldn't dare say I'm white because I have a white distant relative. Because see, some of that lineage, they down south still. My white family members. And do y'all know they don't claim none of us Black people? We don't give a fuck. But I'm just letting you know how that shit rolls. So for especially a lot of you privileged mofos, for example, and I'm going to say, I don't give a fuck who like it or don't. You got a white parent. Because see, a lot of you same mofos could have passed back in the day as whites. Hell, one of my grandmothers could pass back in the day. Just saying. I could pass for something too other than Black. But I choose not to. I could easily like, no, I ain't Black. But I am. And I'm proud to be Black. So I say that to say this. When I saw what happened, first of all, my man showed me the video because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I just kept seeing people I kept seeing stuff on Facebook and people, with cheers and shit. I'm like, what the fuck is going on with these cheers and shit? So he showed me the video. Now, the first one he showed me didn't show the whole thing. I was like, oh, hell no. When I saw they were jumping that Black man, when the Black man was getting the best of the white man to start this shit. This is some typical shit. It don't even matter what your race is. You know the mofos that start a fight, but then they start losing. So their homeboys or homegirls want to jump in and try and jump you because you whooping their ass after they started it type shit. Yeah, them. So it made me, I was all, hell no. And my man was like, no, hold up. He showed me no video to continue to show me the whole thing. So I did feel good. I understand some people might be like, okay, they're like, oh, that's negative. Y'all sticking together for a fight. No, motherfucker. That's why I did this video. Because if you know the history, especially when it comes to Alabama and the people that's still there, because their ancestors were there and they're still there, you will understand why they did what they. I don't even give a fuck. It don't even matter. Look, I'm in Washington, D.C. I don't give a fuck. Anybody know me? No, I'm the type of person. If I see somebody picking on somebody, I'm going to help the person. That don't mean I'm going to win, but I'm going to try and help the person. That's just in me. Is that part of being Black? Maybe. At the end of the day, it's in my DNA. You can think and say whatever the fuck you want, but ain't nobody can take away from who the fuck I am. Period. So when I saw that, I felt proud when I saw all those strangers. That's a lot of y'all, which y'all want to refer to, strangers. But at the end of the day, we all family. That's why we say my sister, my brother, my sis, my bro. That's why we say that. Because I see a lot of people get that shit twisted as well. And then when I saw the young Black man jump in that water and swim over to help that man, first of all, I was like, the first thing I thought was, see, he proved that we can swim. Motherfucker, don't get nothing twisted. Just because we don't want to randomly jump in no fucking water, because y'all think we don't want to mess up our hair. We don't got shit to do with that. We will swim when necessary. Message. We will swim. We will go. We will do what the fuck we gotta do when necessary. We will float. We will swim. We will swing. We will do what the fuck we have to do when necessary. And let me be very clear. A lot of motherfuckers need to rewatch that shit. And see, YouTube is censoring this shit. That's why I'm not showing that shit on none of my YouTube channels. However, I want to put it on my Patreon, but I'm going to put it over there for free. So if you want to see, you can go on my Patreon and check it out. Okay? It'll be over there on Friday. Just so you know. I'm going to put that over there for y'all for free. Just so y'all can see that I'm not going to put everything over there to be paid. But I have to put a lot of sensitive content from now on Patreon. Because YouTube continues to censor the truth. See, if something is a lie, why are you censoring? All you got to do is say it's a lie. All you got to do is age restrict it. But to take something down? So let me end this with this. People feel some type of way about the chair. This dude, they got a warrant out on him, the person who used the chair. But guess what? I bet you he will gladly take whatever time they may give him. We don't know if they're going to give him any. They say they want him for question, but we know what the fuck it is. I bet you he would gladly take that time. I would have been, if I was there, I would have been right there with him swinging chairs. Because you know, my mama also told me, shit, if you think you can't be somebody, you better pick something up. I'm just saying. I would have defended that black man. That was an older black man. I could be wrong, but I heard that he is in his 60s. I also heard he was the only one that was in the hospital with injuries that had to be treated. Nobody, let me end it with this. Nobody, put it like this. No black person jumped into it until they saw all those white people jump on him. Let me say that again. Because when that white man came out of fucking nowhere, he thought he was Superman, and he came out of nowhere and attacked that black man stepped the fuck back, took his work hat off like a lot of motherfuckers. Oh, this what we doing? Oh, I'm no longer on the clock. He took his hat off and swung it and went in and did what the fuck he had to do. And to be honest, he was getting the best of it. And if them motherfuckers left him alone, he probably would have threw that motherfucker in that river. Message. And then them ancestors would have really dealt with his ass. You can't jump somebody and then act surprised when other motherfuckers show up to defend the person that you was trying to jump. You can't cry victim to situations that you created. With that being said, if you're not already subscribed to my live channel, please do so. Links in the description box. So please do that. Also, if you're not subscribed to my podcast channel, subscribe to that because today is Wednesday. Y'all gonna see this on Thursday. So either Thursday or Friday of this week, I'm going to have on this podcast channel the history that led up to the Alabama brawl. Okay? So that's going to be over there if y'all want to know the history. So go ahead and make sure you subscribe to that. Also, I got new content on my Patreon. Check that out. And like I said, if you want to see the full video to that brawl, that's also going to be my Patreon for free. Matter of fact, I'm going to give y'all, say Saturday, give myself time to upload it all. Because actually, I know it's 2 parts that I got put together. I'm going to put it over there. So, and it's going to be for free. And as a matter of fact, when I have it up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my community wall the link. So pay attention to my community wall. Not just me, but any content creator on YouTube that you follow, please check our community wall. Because depending on what device you're on, you're not going to get no notifications. The only time you get notifications for community wall posts is if you are on your cell phone. If you are on your laptop, your desktop, your iPad, all that shit like that, you're not going to see it unless you actually search and go to somebody's physical page. Just hit into you some game. So anyway, share your thoughts below. Did you know that history, first of all, about Alabama and the last slave ship and the slave trade and all that? Did y'all know that? Share your comments below. Let's be respectful. Like I said, at the end of the day, I get so tired of motherfuckers saying, A lot of times, I hate to say it, y'all, but a lot of times it's white people saying that we making it about race. Y'all made all this shit about race for 400 something plus years. Fuck you and your feelings. Is how I feel. How dare you fucking tell me and my people how the fuck we supposed to feel and act? How the fuck you supposed to tell us how we supposed to feel and act when we hear our elders tell us the story? My mama, whose family from South Carolina, told me about the stories every summer when she was sent down south to visit, and how they couldn't drink out of certain water fountains. They only had to drink out the ones labeled colored. So miss me with the bullshit. Don't you ever tell us how the fuck we supposed to act or feel if you haven't experienced, or at least you don't have the stories to tell that your own people live. See, I got a lot of stories I could tell that my blood relatives live. And my mama was one of them. And she gave us a lot of stories. And I'm glad I paid attention. I didn't write it down, but it's in my memory. Thank y'all for watching. Comment, share. Thank you for watching.